The death toll from the flooding rises above 200, making this Europe's worst weather disaster in 5 decades. Rescuers say 205 people are dead, but a minister earlier said dozens and dozens were still missing as rescuers battled to reach areas still cut off by floodwaters.
And anger because it's outrageous that, our local government didn't do anything about it, knowing they well knew that, this was coming and did nothing about it.
Barcelona is facing nature's wrath like never before. But that's not all. There's a mysterious element making these disasters even more terrifying. What's lurking beneath these calamities that has scientists and locals alike losing sleep? Spain's unimaginable tragedy. Spain is dealing with a jaw-dropping natural disaster. Record-breaking rainfall has unleashed flash floods across the nation, leaving a trail of chaos, devastation, and heart-wrenching losses. In a tragedy the likes of which Spain hasn't seen for generations, at least 158 lives have been lost as rescue teams battle to pull out any survivors from the waterlogged ruins. Over 1,200 brave rescuers, joined by drones, are racing against time, but as the rain keeps coming, so do the challenges. Every second counts, Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez emphasized, standing amidst the destruction as he offered words of hope to the affected. The sheer scale of the tragedy is staggering. In Valencia alone, 155 souls have been claimed by the flooding, with 2 more lost in Castilla-La Mancha and 1 British national among the victims in Andalusia. But the heart of the horror lies in Paiporta, Valencia, a town where the river itself turned into a force of terror. With at least 40 fatalities recorded, the shockwaves are being felt by every local. We all know someone who has died, shared Miguel Gorilla, a local pharmacist. You see, it's a scene straight out of a nightmare. As the BBC reports, undertakers and funeral vans line the streets, collecting bodies in the aftermath, while cars, tossed like toys by the storm surge, are piled up on nearby roads. And with every passing moment, the full weight of this disaster sinks deeper into Spain's heart. What's more, the chilling death count skyrocketed to over 90 on the 30th of October, in the dire hours following the relentless downpour that battered Valencia, Castilla-La Mancha, and even reached as far south as Malaga. Can you believe it? Xiva, a town near Valencia, witnessed a year's worth of rain crash down in just 8 hours, as stated by EMET, the Spanish weather authority. As if this wasn't enough, the skies are threatening yet more fury, with fresh rain warnings issued for the southern and eastern parts of Spain. King Felipe VI declared the crisis far from over, and PM Sanchez urged people to seek safe refuge. Honestly, the reality is harsh. Hundreds find themselves huddled in makeshift shelters, embarking on the monumental task of reclaiming their streets, homes, and livelihoods. Transportation remains paralyzed, with major roads and rail links severed, isolating Valencia from the rest of the nation. Amidst this turmoil, Spain has plunged into 3 days of national mourning. Flags flying at half-mast and the air filled with somber minutes of silence. But as the waters rise, so does public outrage. How could this happen? Many are questioning why warnings weren't sounded earlier, as floodwaters had already invaded Valencia hours before alerts were sounded at 2015 on that evening. Critics are now scrutinizing the disaster management's delayed response, sparking a heated debate over the adequacy of the nation's preparedness for such calamities. With authorities labeling the disaster as unprecedented, it's clear that various factors are at play, not least the specter of climate change, which looms large, intensifying the likelihood of extreme weather events. The question remains, will Spain adapt in time to weather the storm of future crises? And now the researchers have pinpointed the culprit behind this unfortunate ordeal, a phenomenon known as gota fria. This meteorological mischief maker strikes during the autumn and winter months, when a gust of cold air meets the Mediterranean's warmer waters, setting the stage for disaster. But here's the twist. It's not just nature doing its thing. Thanks to rising global temperatures, the clouds are now swollen with more rain than ever before. According to scientists who chatted with the media, the world has heated up by about 1.1 degrees Celsius since the Industrial Revolution began. And unless world leaders get serious about reducing emissions, the mercury will keep climbing. Make no mistake, climate change has supercharged these downpours. declares Dr. Friederike Otto from Imperial College London. As part of a crack team of international experts, Dr. Otto is on a mission to unravel how warming is turning weather events into extreme nightmares. You see, this isn't just a one-off tragedy. The last time Spain saw floods this deadly was way back in 1973, when storms lashed the southeastern provinces of Granada, Murcia, and Almería, claiming at least 150 lives. Speaking of gota fria, let's break down the phenomenon a bit. Just imagine this. The rain crashes down with such high intensity that soils, parched and baked from the scorching summer sun, simply can't handle it. With the extremes in rainfall and hotter summers baking the soil, its ability to soak up water plummets, explains Prof. Mark Smith from the University of Leeds. This creates a vicious cycle where more rain surges straight into our rivers, amplifying the flood risk dramatically. But wait, there's a twist here. Scientists are buzzing with debates over whether our warming world is also slowing down these storms, making them linger longer and unload even more rain. This year has tossed us some chilling proof. Remember Storm Boris? That beast of a storm that wreaked havoc across Central Europe in September? Powered by the searing Mediterranean heat, its destruction was dialed up to devastating levels, with climate change reportedly doubling its likelihood. And in Spain, the drama intensifies with a bit of controversy. The outcry grows louder as critics argue that sharper, clearer warnings could have mitigated the disaster. Could more have been done? The question hangs in the air, heavier than the storm clouds that brought so much turmoil. As the aftermath unfolds, haunting stories emerge, each one revealing the raw and relentless power of nature that swept through Spain. Spaniards recount the horror. "It hit us like a tsunami," exclaimed Guillermo Serrano Perez, his voice still shaking from the ordeal. This 21-year-old from Paiporta, near Valencia, is just one of the thousands whose lives turned into a horror movie scene this past week. Guillermo was driving along the motorway with his parents when, out of nowhere, a monstrous wave of water surged over them. Their survival tale? A desperate scramble onto a bridge, leaving their car to surrender to the merciless floodwaters below. Despite the relentless downpour that had set the stage, many, like Guillermo and his family, were blindsided by the flood's ferocious onslaught. Were the warnings enough? The story of that terrifying night continues to unfold, with each survivor's tale more gripping than the last. At the crack of dawn, Spain's meteorological agency, AEMET, fired off a chilling alert. Torrential rains were heading towards Valencia. "Be very careful. The danger is extreme. Do not travel unless absolutely necessary," they cautioned on X, before slamming down a maximum red alert. Despite continuous updates and urgent warnings to steer clear of riverbanks, the day unfolded with a grim inevitability. By mid-afternoon, the Regional Emergencies Coordination Center was already sharing images of La Fuente and Util's streets, now vicious streams of floodwater. As rivers began to swell hauntingly, the center issued a stark warning. Stay away from the water's edge. Yet for many, the warning bells tolled too late. Shiva, merely 20 kilometers away, was among the first to face the relentless onslaught. A deep ravine slicing through the town became a conduit for disaster, swelling with rainwater by the afternoon. By 6 p.m., the streets of Shiva transformed into torrents, dragging cars, street lamps, and benches in their furious flow. Emergency services raced against time, battling to mitigate the havoc, but the flood's ferocity was beyond anything ever seen. The town, and indeed the region, was at the mercy of nature's raw power. But even the best meteorologists find themselves grappling with the unpredictable. You know, forecasting where a furious thunderstorm will strike next is notoriously difficult. Of course, the warnings are crucial for getting people to safety, but pinning down the heaviest rainfalls of intense storms ahead of time? That's a tall order. Despite the uncertainty, forecasters aren't backing down, diving headfirst into innovative research to crack this tough nut. This catastrophic flooding has also thrown a harsh spotlight on a glaring issue. The infrastructure is actually pretty unprepared for the brutal reality of today's climate extremes. As some experts point out, the bridges, roads, and streets that crisscross our cities were engineered for the climate of yesteryears, not the ferocious weather patterns we now face. As the floodwaters recede, the question looms large. Are we ready to rethink our cities for the next century? The challenge is monumental, but so is the need for action. The skies opened up with a vengeance, and within minutes, the waters surged up to 1.5 meters, recounted the mayor of Ribaroja de Turia, his voice heavy with the weight of the recent catastrophe. As the region dealt with the chaos, reports of missing persons swept away in the floodwaters began to surface. Yet, shockingly, it wasn't until after 20 o'clock, more than 2 hours later, that Civil Protection issued a travel warning to the Valencia region's residents. By then, it was already too late for many. Obviously, the critics are up in arms over the delayed response. The warning, coming more than 12 hours after the first red alert was sounded, caught many off guard, especially commuters like Paco, who was driving from Valencia to Picasso. "I had no idea what hit us," he said, recounting the terrifying moment when the flash floods engulfed the roads, leaving no escape. Paco's voice trembled as he recounted his brush with death to El Mundo. The water, it was like a beast, unbelievably fast, dragging cars as if they were toys. Caught in its furious grip, he managed to escape his car, only to be slammed against a fence. Clinging for life, he described the water's intense force. "It ripped my clothes right off. I couldn't move. It was that powerful." Not far from Paco's nightmare, Patricia Rodriguez faced her own terror. Driving home from work through Sedaví, she found herself trapped in a traffic line as floodwaters began to rise ominously around her. Cars started floating. "We were petrified the river would burst its banks. We were right in the line of fire," she relayed to local media. In a desperate bid for safety, she and another driver fled on foot. Her eyes wide with fear, she witnessed a young man nearby, cradling a newborn, navigating through the chaos to safety. "It's a miracle no one slipped. The current was merciless," she added. In a heart-wrenching video surfacing on X, the dark situation at a Pai Porta care home was laid bare for the world to see. Wheelchair-bound residents were trapped in a dining room, the murky floodwaters rising hauntingly to their knees, a sight that echoed desperation and urgency. Meanwhile, in nearby Benetússer, Ruth Moyano captured the escalating crisis through her posts on X. From the safety of her building's upper floors, she and her neighbors watched helplessly as one of their own succumbed to a heart attack. The civil guard has arrived on foot, but they're helpless outside. A car has jammed the entrance. "Does anyone know who else can help?" she pleaded in a message sent in the desperate early hours of Wednesday. As dawn broke, the daylight unveiled a scene of devastation that words could barely capture. Dozens of cars were stacked atop each other like discarded toys. Businesses lay in ruins, and towns were smothered under layers of mud and debris. In Valencia, a harrowing tale of survival emerged as Juliano Sanchez was rescued after a grueling 7 hours of battling hypothermia. Clinging to palm trees, he fought against the merciless currents that threatened to claim his life. "I didn't want to die," he confessed to El Periódico, his voice a mix of relief and terror. "I held on to those palm trees with everything I had, determined not to be swept away by the river." Yet not everyone was as fortunate as Juliano. Across the region, the toll of the disaster continues to climb, with dozens still missing, their fates uncertain. Survivors recount scenes of utter despair and helplessness as the flood unleashed its fury. One man shared with Las Provincias the chilling sight of 2 cars being devoured by the raging waters. "We don't know if there were people inside. We'd never seen anything like it," he said, a harsh reminder of the flood's brutal force. As the horror sinks in, questions arise. Was this catastrophe purely nature's doing, or are deeper forces at play, pushing our planet's limits? The mysterious weather system behind Spain's floods. Can we really consider torrential downpours to just be acts of nature? Are they truly unavoidable and inevitable? Not quite, according to scientists. A warming planet is a key player here, fueling more frequent and ferocious extreme weather events than we've ever faced before. So what's the real scoop behind these deadly floods in Spain? It all comes down to Dana, a troublesome weather system born from a volatile interaction between cold and warm air, producing monstrous rain clouds. Known in full as Depresión Aislada en Niveles Altos, or high-altitude isolated depression, this phenomenon doesn't play by the usual meteorological rules. It forms independently of the jet streams that typically guide polar or subtropical storms, making it an unpredictable and formidable force. This climate change-fueled pattern is not just a theory, it's the grim reality behind the devastating flash floods sweeping across Spain, wreaking havoc and rewriting the rules of what to expect from Mother Nature. When the chill of cold air sweeps over the warm Mediterranean waters, it triggers a dramatic aerial ballet. The warmer air ascends rapidly, condensing into dense, water-heavy clouds. These clouds can loom ominously over one area for hours on end, their potential for destruction mounting by the minute. And the havoc doesn't stop with rain. This meteorological turmoil can also unleash large hailstorms and even tornadoes, as witnessed this week, meteorologists report. Why is eastern and southern Spain a hotspot for such extreme weather? It's all about location. Nestled between the Atlantic Ocean and the Mediterranean Sea, this region is a battleground where warm, moist air masses collide with cold fronts. The surrounding mountains only amplify the drama, cradling the formation of storm clouds and torrential rainfall. Ruben del Campo, a spokesperson for Spain's national weather agency, AEMET, has reported that Dana was among the 3 most ferocious storms to hit the Valencia region in the last century. He noticed that the forecasts matched the catastrophic outcomes everyone saw. However, in a specific zone stretching from Utiel to Shiva, the rainfall astonishingly surpassed 300 liters per square meter. No wonder this area became a relentless engine of storm activity, with systems forming and regenerating nonstop. While pinning down whether this specific Dana event was directly caused by climate change will take time and meticulous data analysis, the consensus is leaning towards a yes. Experts suggest that the Mediterranean's rising temperatures and increasingly warm, humid air are major players, setting the stage for more frequent and intense weather anomalies. According to Hannah Cloak, a hydrology expert at the University of Reading, we're in for more flash floods in the future. She's calling it as she sees it. These aren't just rainy days, they're climate change chaos with heavy rainfalls and floods so devastating they'd make Noah build another ark. Professor Cloak throws down the real talk. Those early warnings? Not nearly enough, she says. Just hearing it's gonna rain a lot isn't cutting it anymore. People are out there, driving through floodwaters like it's a splash park, not realizing they're in grave danger. We've got so much water, it's practically a water world, and not the fun kind. Now get this. Before scientists got all fancy with their terms, the people in Spain and parts of France used to call this kind of crazy autumn rainfall gota fria, which means cold drop. This old-school term got its start way back in 1886, thanks to German scientists who noticed these chilly disturbances high up in the air, calling it Kaltlufttropfen, or cold airdrop. So next time you hear gota fria, you know things are about to get historically soggy. Even the weather experts over at Spanish agency AEMET are shaking things up, telling us that the old cold drop is yesterday's news. Now it's all about Dana, a high-altitude troublemaker that likes to break away from the jet stream and do its own thing. Sometimes this weather rebel goes rogue, moving backwards from east to west. And if you thought that was wild, listen to this. Flooding in Central Europe didn't just happen, it was due to climate change. According to the World Weather Attribution Service, these severe rains were twice as likely because of our warming world. And that's not all. These rains are not only sticking around longer, they're also 10% more intense. Talk about overstaying their welcome. But wait, there's more heat on the horizon. The UN Environment Program is spotlighting the Mediterranean as a climate change hotspot. This isn't just sun and fun, it's serious business. This region is heating up 20% faster than the rest of the planet, putting the Mediterranean at the center of a major global warming showcase. With the summer of 2024 smashing heat records, the 480 million folks calling this area home are really feeling the burn. To further put things into perspective, this might be Europe's most catastrophic natural disaster in recent memory, and that too since the horrific floods of 2021, where Germany lost at least 185 lives. But hold on, it gets even grimmer. This isn't Spain's first rodeo with wild weather. The country has seen its fair share of autumn storms, but nothing, absolutely nothing, has come close to this latest havoc. This disaster echoes the chilling floods in Germany and Belgium in 2021, where an insane 230 people lost their lives. Digging deeper into Spain's stormy history, this disaster could very well top the charts as the nation's worst in modern times, surpassing the 87 lives claimed by the 1996 flood near Biescas in the Pyrenees. Going even further back, the floods of 1957 in Valencia were so destructive they led to the rerouting of the Turia River to protect the city center. How do you think Spain can better prepare for these dual threats of drought and floods in the future? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button for more.